Well, speaking of things stinking around the dinner table, do you think that there was a little hint of a smell of jealousy around the dinner table at the McMahon family household, that Triple H has gotten all the attention lately and poor Stephanie's been left out? So now, in response to this, she got her own episode of Evil. Stephanie McMahon, WWE Evil, this past week on television that I watched instead of NXT again, because, again, they gave me nothing interesting to want to see. Brian, have you ever seen anybody like that production team try to stretch an hour out of a minute career in wrestling as they did with, and basically tried to present her as one of the top heels in the history of the entire wrestling promotion?
Well, to be fair, they had several experts also say that, like some radio guys and Lita. So,
and what, Dr. Phil, was he on this one? I forgot. I think he was in there too.
Was it, we got Dr. Phil for an afternoon, let's ask him generic questions and plug it into the entire series? What the hell does he have to do with any of this?
He's always in the same place. He's always in the same place. So I think just, let's mention a name and get him to say something. I'm not knocking Stephanie when I say this, that it was obvious that they were working as hard as they could to say everything 5 times, because she didn't have an hour documentary career in wrestling, at least not in front of the camera. She never worked anywhere for any promotion but the WWE. She never made any outside wrestling appearance. She was never really a wrestler, although she wrestled a couple of gimmick matches. She was never really a manager, although she was in the corner a few times of people. Did she ever work a house show even for the WWE?
Probably when things were really, really hot, probably.
Possibly. But she had a spot that was created specifically because she was the daughter of the owner of the company. And this is, again, she's a very good promo. The McMahon genes, they didn't get them from Linda, but Shane and Stephanie can both talk. And she presented herself as she was supposed to. A lot of other people couldn't have carried that off. But still, it was what it was. The reason that she was involved was because of the evil McMahon empire and the interplay between them. If she was anybody else in the world, she wouldn't have a spot and it wouldn't have worked. And I mean, from the start of the show, they showed one picture of her with, who was it? Somebody. It wasn't her tap dancing on Andre's palm, but she said, well, I grew up in our business. No, she didn't. I'm again, not knocking Stephanie. She wasn't like she was the daughter of anybody else in any territory. She was the daughter of Vince McMahon. The boys weren't calling her over to their knees in the locker room to tell her everything that was wrong or right with the wrestling business and where her dad was going right and where he was making mistakes and blah, blah, blah. If she grew up going to the matches at the Garden or being around some of the boys at Vince's house, they were very deferential to her as the daughter of the boss. It's not like growing up in the locker room, one of the offspring of one of the boys. Then you get the real scoop. She went to college, and I was still there when she came out of college, and they mentioned at the start of this program she was working as an intern at the TV studio. And that was the sum total of experience of any kind that she had in the business, and it's not her fault because she was in school before. But she goes from being an intern at the TV studio to probably one of the last ideas that Shitstain had, apparently, because this happened in the summer of '99. I just left Come to OVW in Louisville. They show footage from a production meeting at some TV, because there was Kevin Dunn, there was Vince, there was the standard crew of a production meeting at a pay-per-view or a TV taping. And she was sitting there. They had started having her come into the meetings. and Triple H too. And they tried to pass it off like that was when she was first hearing that she was going to be in an angle with The Undertaker and be carried out on the cross like she was a pawn in the game, as they say. Does anybody legitimately believe that Stephanie, the daughter of Vince McMahon, the owner of the company, first heard that she was going to be involved in this angle at the production meeting the day of the show? Brian, answer me that.
I don't understand why they would believe that.
Because apparently Stephanie said that. And here was another quote from Stephanie. I don't know if this was right at this moment, but she said, "That was the moment that my character realized." God damn, she didn't even have the nerve to go to the actor's studio before she became a thespian. So they go through the whole thing where Triple H stops the wedding that she was going to have to test because he revealed that he married her in Vegas and had the video while she was Cosby'd in the front seat. That he, like, it's possible to marry an unconscious person. Has anybody ever been introduced into the business in worse angles? The Undertaker cross and the fucking drugged wedding and the... I got to be honest, I never saw a lot of this stuff because I just moved to Louisville and I was watching as little WWF as I could at that point because I just got out of there and I was relieved. I would watch Raw most often on Monday nights because I was writing Wednesday's OVW television. Thursday, when SmackDown was on, was my one day where I got away from the wrestling business, so I would tape it and tend to watch it later and usually not ever come around to it. When some of the OVW guys would be brought up to the main roster, I would watch whatever program they were on for a week or two until I got disgusted and pissed off at their way they were being presented and buried and started breaking shit, and then I quit watching it. And then Triple H fucked the dead body in the coffin. And I think I sent out a memo telling everybody in the company and OVW it was okay if they didn't watch anymore either because I didn't want them to learn any bad habits. But some of this stuff I had not seen. But it wasn't very good. And they actually called Stephanie turning on Vince one of the greatest heel turns in history. I actually had forgotten she turned on Vince at one point. They tried to make Vince the babyface. But now we find out that that is up there with Ole turning on Dusty in the cage and Zbyszko stabbing Bruno in the back and Stephanie turning on Vince. Her first match got longer on the show than it lasted in the ring. She became the general manager of SmackDown. Did she at one point get a boob job and then take them out? Did she at one point look a lot more protuberant long about the mid or late 2000s than she did before or afterwards? Or was I just imagining was it one of those push-up bras?
Well, she definitely got enhancement work. I think she's openly talked about that in the past, but also I think if you look at her, she's a lot healthier looking then and then at other times where she maybe got a little lean. So that may have affected things. I don't know what she's taken out of her body, but she's grown up. She's older, so she looks leaner and different.
Leaner would explain it. So then right about that, gosh, I don't even know. Maybe it has it on her Wikipedia. Maybe you could Google that. But when did she become head of creative? She starts interning in late 98, early 99. She does the angle there with Undertaker in the summertime of 99. I know that's just why I moved to Louisville in July of 99, so sometime right after that. Shitstain then fucks everybody around and leaves with no notice and calls Vince on the phone, tell him he's done. That was September of 99. When did Stephanie become the head of creative and start hiring all the TV writers? Within a year after that? Pretty soon?
I'm actually looking for the exact time. I see a quote here that just says, Stephanie McMahon is recalled being put in charge of the WWE creative team just 2 weeks after initially joining the group as a writer.
So
McMahon had worked in various positions in WWE, and is currently
Which ones? Yes, an intern and a person tied to a cross. That's the point. I've realized this show has made me realize that we got another thing to thank Shitstain for. Because when he left and went to WCW, conned them into believing that he had been responsible for the Attitude Era, left Vince high and dry. Vince brings in a member of the family, makes her head of creative, and they start hiring TV writers because now he can't trust the wrestling people. So inadvertently, like he does everything else, Shitstain is responsible for TV writers getting involved in wrestling. And they did not mention on this program that Stephanie became head of creative of the biggest wrestling promotion in the world with 2 weeks experience on the creative team and 2 years tops experience as an intern / person strapped to a cross / boss's daughter. So everybody praising a strong woman in a position of power, let's be honest, no other woman in the world would have got this job because there wasn't a spot like that unless it was Vince's daughter. She did a good job of what she did, but are we expected to believe that Stephanie McMahon is one of the greatest on-camera personalities in the history of wrestling? I'm sorry. And 1 hour of her being put over, catered to, and doing her best Vince imitation with the characters and everything, it was long and repetitious. And was there anything about this that drew money, or was it just a lot of TV moments with the family?
No, this was horrible. And the other thing was it went into kayfabe, and it stayed in kayfabe. It was kind of telling her story, and again, in the bullshit McMahon fashion. I grew up around wrestling. I was in the locker room. I give them credit for not including Andre the Giant being her best friend in the story here. But we saw the picture.
I bet that just left the cutting room floor.
And then all of a sudden she's on TV, and then all of a sudden that's the real person. The character does this, she does this, she does this. They never talk about the real person or anything she ever does behind the scenes ever again. That's the real interesting special.
Well, I wish they'd kayfabe more on the guys that actually matter. But they tell every secret in the world, but this, they try to blur the lines of reality somehow. After Stephanie was already talking about her character realized. Go ahead.
If you watch this, it reveals why WWE lost so much audience. After a while, repeat after repeat, segment after segment of Stephanie cutting down top baby faces. You don't see any comeback. There's never like, and then this person got even. No, there's none of that. It's just her cutting the balls off of the Big Show, Bryan Danielson. Every single person she encountered on that thing. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people lost interest in WWE. They act like in this documentary, the Authority was such an important part of the show and it became a thing and we needed that. The Authority was one of the things that hurt the show.
It's what ran people off.
Yeah.
Well, what other entity, what other professional sports franchise, what other entertainment company, record company, movie studio, any entity, any business has for the past 25 years been presented as if the people who own it are not only evil people trying to prevent the fans of that particular organization seeing what they want to see, but they're trying to screw around all of the employees. Sooner or later, there's going to be a backlash. No pun intended with this weekend's pay-per-view. And that's what I've said a million times. Vince McMahon was one of the premier heels and television personas in the history of wrestling. And when that had run its course, somebody should have corrected that course. The sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters and offspring and multi-generational McMahons didn't all need to follow in evil footsteps. Then it turned people against the promotion itself, which is why that suddenly AEW 3 years ago became the biggest crowdfunding project in the history of wrestling, where all the people started buying tickets even if they couldn't go to the show because they wanted to take up for the wrestlers that had been screwed around by the evil McMahons. So the McMahon family created the demand and fulfillment of their own competition by disgruntling the people that have been watching them for years by giving them shit and trying to make them like it. Every time I go over here to Kroger and go shopping, I want to know that the guy running that place hates all of his customers and wants to screw all of his employees. That's the place I want to shop.
That was the thing. It went into kayfabe, and then they pretended like the Authority era was some golden period, as opposed to the period where they ran people off, where the show became unwatchable. And WWE's never addressed their role in what independent wrestling is now, which is less about being an independent wrestling promotion and more like up yours to WWE.
Yeah. Let the people that are most devoted to wrestling want to band together and support anything besides the biggest wrestling company.